All right, and we should be live. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to this live stream today. We're going to be doing something kind of interesting for this live stream today. We're going to be looking at ThreatGen's Red vs Blue, and I just so happen to actually have the developer of this game on with us tonight. I'm going to let him talk about the game a little bit, and then we're going to go in and we're going to play it. So over to you.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Ring Zero, or that's my gamer name, or my handle. I go by in my real life. I go by Clint Bow Dungeon. So yeah, I mean, we'll just kind of let it go free flow and let you kind of start and just talk about it as we go.
All right, sounds good. So we're going to start with we're going to go in the hot seat mode, and under the hot seat mode, we play as both the red and the blue team. So the idea part of this game is on the red team, you're playing as the hacker or the cyber criminal, so to speak. And on the blue side, you're playing more of a defensive role for cybersecurity. What you think of as security analyst, a CISO role. It's a bit like a tabletop exercise. So we have some interesting, some great quotes here. I'm a big fan of chess, so I like quotes like this. Chess has only two outcomes, draw and checkmate. The objective of the game is total victory of defeat. And that could not be more true for when we're talking about cybersecurity. It feels like a game of cat and mouse and chess when we're talking about staying ahead of the adversary. So in a company not so far away, the red team and the blue team remain locked in the constant struggle for victory. So the blue team leader Cypher has developed a new network environment which carefully still lacks even the most basic defenses, seeking to take advantage of the opportunity. The red team leader Breach has dispatched their most trusted operative to infiltrate and take control of the blue team's fledgling new network. So we have two sides here. We have the red team, which represents kind of the hackers, and the blue team, those are going to be your defenders. And we're going to have a more ICS kind of environment. So we're going to start as the blue team. And as we go in here, we're going to start by clicking on the network, which I like this kind of a cool retro stylized background for takes me back kind of to the 90s for how that, the look of it. And if we click on network, we can see we have like this network map of our environment. There's the internet, and we have our corporate router with our internet coming in. We have some switches, but we don't really have any segmentation going on yet. And the interesting thing to this game is I like some of the attention to detail that has gone into this, because you have it's not just a couple computers in the server. You have the things that you typically see in an environment, such as the Active Directory server, the CMS server, and the email server. And correct me if I'm wrong, but when you guys program this game, when you hack the Active Directory server, that means password attacks are more likely to work, correct?
That's exactly right. And you'll find that throughout this entire game. You want to be careful of your turn. In hot seat mode, you can hit the gear icon up in the top right to pause the timer. There you go. You can't do that in a networked game, but you can now to give you time to talk. But there's a lot of that back-end correlation in the rules matrix of the game, to where, yeah, if you hack the Active Directory server, or the red team hacks the Active Directory server, that it makes password attacks easier. There's a lot of things that go on like that. So for example, as you go, if you knock out an intrusion detection system, then you're not going to know if you've been attacked or compromised. So a lot of that detail has gone into the back into the game to try to make it like real life scenarios and like the mechanics would work in real life.
And I like this a lot, because oftentimes when I'm going in and doing engagements, some people know that I'm the cybersecurity practice lead for a IT consulting company, Appalachia Technologies. And we go in and do a lot of security assessments and penetration testing. And we talk a lot about tabletop exercises and where to spend money and how do you spend money on defending your network. And this is so important. And I've pulled this up in front of a couple people before as kind of a good way of showing how do you spend your money and protect a network, and explain it in an easy way to people that might not be familiar with some of these concepts. And I think the way it's broken down is just a really nice way. We have 3 of our IT security people. We have a $50,000 budget, and we have all these systems we have to defend, and we're starting at nothing, or we have kind of a little bit of a baseline, but not much to go on.
In real life, that $50,000 budget may be a lot for some people, but I think it's kind of low for the game. But you had to take we just basically had to start with the variable baseline and say, okay, this is what we're starting with. So there's not exactly a real life dollar equivalent there, or but it gives you a reference.
Yeah, and I think that's the point here. And we're running out of time, so we're going to make our first choice here for the blue team. So we have, if we go into the actions column, we have a bunch of different actions we can take and where we're going to spend our money. So we can hire new staff. We can do a firewall gateway. I'm going to do a gateway firewall. That's going to be one of the things I spend my money on because we really need some kind of firewall to stop things from getting in. Let's see, we could do maybe some security monitoring too. That might be a good thing to add. And you'll notice here some of the prerequisites here. I think this is great because if I tell people all the time, if you don't have an asset inventory, you can't really do vulnerability analysis. And we'll do an asset inventory. We don't have enough people. So even though I have money, notice I don't have the people to do things. So I think this is an important part when you're talking about resources. This is a good concept to think about. So when you're doing things in your environment, maybe your company has money, but you don't always have the right resources to get the things done you want. And sometimes you have extra resources. Now, no one really has extra resources, but it seems that way, but you don't have the money to really invest in some of the systems you need. I think that's a good attention to detail there, and it resonates with me as a cybersecurity professional. I see it all the time. All right, and now it's going to be the red team's turn. So this is pretty exciting. The hacker in me always gets excited when you're talking about the red team, and this one's kind of fun. So we start without seeing much of anything. So we start, the first thing, I guess the only thing we can do when we first start is we can either do research or we can do open source reconnaissance. And so we have 5 people, so we're going to do some open source recon.
So the concept there, instead of people, is actually, we call them hacker resources. It represents not just people, it represents a combination of like the time, the money, the resources, the people, your rig, because when it comes to the red team, we're a hacker personality there. It's a lot more variable. There's a lot more abstract concept going on there. So that's kind of what that means.
Yeah, that makes sense because it might not be, I think resources is a better way to say it because it's not direct people like a one-to-one correlation. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And let's see, what else do we want to research? We got 4 more people. Now, the thing we have to think about is, I keep calling them people, our resources. Our resources do get tied up for a couple turns. So I'm going to research.
Watch your time.
Yeah, let's go.
Default timeout. You got 40 seconds.
Default credentials are great. And I'm going to save my other 2 resources because next turn I'm going to have some other things I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and end my turn here. Now it's back to blue. So if we were playing a one-on-one game, something to think about is we would, and I love these pop-ups too. We have the perimeter firewall installed. It gives me a nice compliment. Good thinking. You don't want bad guys just walking right in. And how true is that? And I love these quotes you guys put in here from different people. And there's just so many fun Easter eggs in these.
That was actually the most difficult and time-consuming part of this entire project, was looking up flavor text for every single one of the actions. And Matt Anderson, who goes by Archon, he's one of the developers. I think he's probably in chat too, but he did most of that. So thanks to him.
Yeah, I think it's great. So now we have 1 person back on our blue team. And this timer is really good because it keeps you on your toes as far as what you need to go. And see, it gives you a score here as you do different things. So we have our nice gateway firewall installed here, and we got a good chunk of money in 1 person. So what are some things we can do with 1 person and some money? Well, we can't hire new staff yet. Policies and procedures sounds good, but we only have 1 person. So we could do the asset inventory, and that makes a lot of sense because we should have an asset inventory. So we're gonna do that. And not a lot else we can do right now. We got some money sitting in our budget, but it's tough to spend right now. And until we get some more people and some more resources freed up. All right, research and default credentials complete. And for those listening out there, I think it's an interesting thing when we talk about default credentials, because I've done quite a few pen tests, and so many of them we get in with default credentials. And it seems to still be almost every engagement I do, there is some equivalent of the word password there. So we're going to do some research. That's still going. We're going to end that for red.
This game was literally developed by experienced professional pen testers and cybersecurity professionals. That's why you see that level of detail.
And it's good because it goes through the whole process. And someone who hasn't done pen testing before or doesn't know how some of these things works, it's very helpful, especially if you go into the actions and you see all these question marks we have. If we click on one of the question marks, it will tell us what that is, and it will talk about the real world description. And when you think about the way people get into video games and they learn absolutely everything about the game, people that are potentially playing this as a game are going to learn cybersecurity, even if they're not trying to. I was playing this game with my wife, and she said something along the lines of, you gotta make sure you hire that extra person and put that SIM in place. And it's amazing because it sounds like she's talking like a CISO, even though she's not in that position. Just from playing this game a little bit, she almost has gained some knowledge in that area, which is pretty amazing.
I had the exact same experience with my wife.
Oh yeah, so someone in the comments said you can change this. So you can change the setting for there to be more time on the turns. I did not do that before doing this game. Before the next game, I will do that, just as we're walking through. But right now, we're kind of just giving an idea of what the red team looks like. And the red team, when you're playing in a real game, because this is a hot seat game. So this is if you're playing on the computer, you take your turn and then you pass it to someone else. This you can play the game on single player or multiplayer with other people. And when you're doing single player, you're versing the computer, and they can't see what your environment looks like. And that will play out here because I have a little bit more insight because I'm doing this. All right, so I have two resources here. What do you guys think I should spend the money on? I could do ICS security monitoring, or I need 3 people to segment the network. I don't have enough people right now.
Segmenting the network takes a lot of staff.
It does take a lot of staff. And you know what? A lot of companies don't segment the network. So we're going to be one of those companies. That's just too hard for us. But we're going to put in some ICS security monitoring because we got 2 people and we got the money. We're going to do it.
And that's a hot topic nowadays. If you're in the cybersecurity community, especially ICS, which stands for Industrial Control Systems, that's a big hot topic nowadays.
It is. And it's just a big thing. Someone just said they always do open source intelligence and research persistence first.
Pause your time. Pause your time. Pause your time.
No.
Okay, you let it go.
Fine.
Okay.
No, I'm good. I'm just waiting for a timer to go down now while we talk through some things. We're ready for the next turn. We're good here. We spent all of our stuff. All right. Yes, open source intelligence is complete. So now we can do a bit more, because now we can do our host scan and we can do some social engineering. How many hacker resources do we got? Oh, we got 3. Take all 3 to do that social engineering, or 1 to do that host scan. What do you guys think we should do? I'm going to do some social engineering. We'll get that other resource back next turn, and then we'll do some host scan.
Here's a developer hint. If you haven't discovered anything, and I actually, to tell you the truth, I'd have to ask one of my lead developers. I don't think social engineering would work if you haven't done any host scanning. I could be wrong. Actually, I think I'm wrong. I think you can probably do. No, that's true. Yeah. So I don't even know my own game. Yeah, you can do social engineering even if you have not discovered any hosts, because that's the nature of social engineering, is that you
Right,
don't discover new
and I
things.
feel like I've done that before, because one of the first things I've done, even back to version 1, is I almost always do the social engineering first, because if you can get to it before the blue team builds up a good security awareness and defense around it, you can get in pretty easy, pretty quickly. And I found that's one way to get into systems. And even when doing pen tests and red team engagements, that's normally the way in, is normally through some type of phishing email.
That's
And when we
exactly
talk
right.
about COVID-19 right now and everything going on, you have a lot of different phishing emails that look exactly like that. They are taking advantage of people's fear to get into systems. And I think that's a pretty realistic view. So we're going to hop over to blue here, and notice all of our resources are still tied up in, we don't have a lot we can do right now.
You can see what they're doing in the action log.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I forgot to say that. In the action log here, you can see what everything is doing and how many turns we have left. So for the monitoring, we have 1 turn left, and we got 1 turn left for the inventory. So then we'll get all 3 people back, and then that should be enough. We can do the segmenting of our network, which is an important part here, because if someone gets in right now, they have full access to everything, which would be a very bad thing. They can run amok inside our network, which would not be good. We don't want that to happen. But how many times, I know that the one company I worked for, they spent several $1,000,000 on new firewalls, and just to schedule the downtime, it took years to get those firewalls in place. And it's something to think about when you're talking about network segmentation. It can be a monumental task, and a lot of organizations don't properly segment their network. All right, we got our 2 hacking resources back, so we're going to go ahead and do a scan. And I love this little bullseye that pops up. And we have 1 person left, and we're going to leave him for right now, because I don't think there's anything we can really do with just 1 guy.
We actually wanted to do a lot more of those little animations, like the little green bullseye and stuff like that. But well, most of the UI was developed by yours truly, and I'm not Blizzard Entertainment.
Never fear, I is here, the plague. Oh, that quote couldn't be more true today, could it? Security monitoring. So we got our ICS security monitoring in place. That is great. And we finally have an asset inventory. We know how many laptops we have, which is always great when you know how many things you own. And you wouldn't think that'd be an issue, but it's a big thing. Now let's look, what actions can we take? I think we already pretty much agree what our next thing could do. We could do vulnerability mapping, we could do assessments, but I think we really want to segment this network, because if we don't do segmentation soon, it's going to get bad. Host scan complete. All right, and we got some hosts here we can take a look at. And not host scan, I want port scan. So now that we have these hosts discovered, we can do a port scan. So this would be equivalent to running like an Nmap. Am I right here for against these services to an extent?
Yeah. So well, first of all, you can move those things around. They're placed randomly, right?
Oh,
so you
cool.
move those around, and then because they get placed randomly, so that you don't already know, what you're looking at by where they're placed on the map if you're the red team. But the services, so that your port scan, just like in a pen test, is going to let you identify, number one. Well, in real life, it lets you understand what services are running on a particular computer, which lets you identify what the computer may be that you're looking at. So in game, doing a port scan actually will identify that host and let you know what it is.
Oh, Clint?
Yep.
You still there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Did we have a broken stream?
Nope. I think there was just some feedback there. I was checking in the comments for the one video, and I think it gave some feedback. I muted that now, so we're good now.
Okay. Yeah, like I was saying, basically doing a port scan, it lets you identify what that question mark is. What asset is that? And then you can start moving around and placing it where you think it should go.
And it's true, because that's the first thing. That's the first thing that every security professional learns when you're first probing a network. You got to run some type of network scanner, whether it's Nmap or Mass Scan or Tenable Nessus or something, to figure out what is there. All right, so all of our people are tied up again. So we're just going to end our turn here and give it back to the red team. So service enumeration complete. It's time for us to find some vulnerabilities. Oh, I love this one, the recon hack the planet from Hackers. It's a great quote. And then this one for all the Star Trek fans out here from Lieutenant Commander Data. I just love scanning for life forms. Sings life forms. Oh, and look at here. We have actually compromised a system here. And this is from our social engineering. If we go to our action log, we can actually see it says social engineering action was successful. Now, what I believe we can then do here is we can do a not a port scan, a
Host scan.
Host scan.
It's called a pivot. Okay, cancel out your
port scan. Yeah,
you did. Okay, good.
Host scan on that. And we can go ahead and do service enumeration on these two guys. So now we have that done, and we have two more people. So we're going to do, so we'll do some research. We'll do some research. We'll do research on persistence. Seems like a good choice. We want to be able to persist those shells in that system and stay in that system, so the good guys can't kick us out.
And that's representative of real life tactics and methods by the hacker. Number one, it's representing the concept of pivoting, right? So you get on a host, you compromise a host, and then you host scan from that, which is called pivoting. But also, yeah, you're right, persistence. That's a technique that allows the bad guys to stay on the system, and it's a good technique.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to stay on the system so you can pivot and get to other systems. So this is where that randomness is important, because on the blue team side, I can see where I'm infected. And it's not great. And we'll see some of the options I have here is I don't even have company backups, guys, because I didn't even create policies and procedures yet. So I can't actually activate incident response, which isn't great. And I actually have no resources because people are still segmenting the network. Remember I said if we didn't segment, we'd be in a whole host of trouble. Well, we're going to see that in just a minute, how much trouble we're in because we didn't segment anything, because there's nothing I can do. All my resources are tied up. But we did detect something. We just don't have anybody to do anything about it. And how many situations?
So true to real life.
Right. And we've had those incidents. And I think just yesterday, they found out Marriott was breached again. Yeah, we have no backups. This is something to think about. We started down this path and we still don't have backups. We don't have security awareness training. We don't have incident response procedures. We don't have two-factor authentication. We don't have any of those things. But this is reminiscent of real life. I've gone into many companies that don't have any of this, and many of them are okay with that. And that's a problem, right? Because some of them will just say, well, I'll accept the risk. And from a cybersecurity perspective, knowing some of that risk, that seems ludicrous to us. And I think in many times it just means that people are misinformed. They don't know how big the risk is. And we're going to see that risk play out here. And oh my goodness, look at this. Isn't this beautiful?
You said it. You said it was a whole host of problems. Well, there you go.
I did. And you can see that pretty well here. This is why you segment your network, guys. This is really the point you try to make. And a visual, pictures say 1,000 words, and I think this says 1,000 words. And I've been in environments where this has been the case. We do a network scan, we get into one device, and that one device has access to everything. So we're going to start doing a bunch of different port scanning, and I don't know what each of these devices are, so we're just going to do it each one at a time and see what happens. And it's going to take a while because we got in pretty quickly with social engineering. We were successful in our first attempt. It's going to be very difficult for the blue team before they can actually get to grips with what is going on and stop this. So once we get our segmentation in place, that might buy us a little bit of time, but they're still going to be in our network until we can kick them out. And again, remember, we don't even have any policies and procedures in place. So from the blue team side, I'll see now we have this. This is beautiful. We have this the segmentation right here, and you can see we have the different firewalls. Everything is nicely segmented. So now our critical system network right here, our ICS network, is separated a little bit. So that's going to buy us some time. But we still don't have anything else in place to combat this situation. So we're going to have to go in here, and we want incident response procedures. So we're going to need to make some policies and procedures, and we're going to have the other guy request some budget because we need more money, more people to deal with this. This isn't fun. We need we're hacked. We need money. And how many times does an organization have no money to spend until they get hacked? And I think you even have this in the game. If you're currently hacked, isn't there a better chance of succeeding and getting the budget you need?
Yeah, so that's a big thing. Everybody that plays this game and talks to us tell us that getting budget in this game is just as frustrating as it is in real life. And so, but just like in real life, you have to find a way to compel management to give you budget. And so we have an algorithm built into this to where if certain things are present in the game, that will factor into if you get budget and how much, just like it is in real life.
And one thing I want to point out here for anyone who might just be, you might just be joining or you're watching, we have a remote user here too. And this remote user, if I remember correctly, this one pops up from time to time when the red team is doing their scanning. So that's another way you can get in.
Exactly. So that's another one of those kind of back-end rules matrix things that we have, in that that remote user will log in and out throughout the game. If you're watching this, you'll see it pops in and pops out on the blue team and in the red team if you have it compromised. And so it simulates how users will log in and log out. They'll be there, they won't be there, and a whole host of other problems they can cause.
Now, it looks like something we did must have either kicked us out or we lost connection or something here. So we're going to
network segmentation.
Oh, yeah, the network segmentation. That kicked us out. That's good. So now we are going to need to run some scans on these devices we have.
So notice,
run a host scan
internally. You can't scan internally now because you lost connection. You still know about those, but you can't scan. So you have to go back to using the internet as your pivot point again until you find a way back in.
Right. And I've actually had this happen to me in a pen test where there was a firewall rule implemented that kept me from going anywhere, which was very good the way they had it set up. So you can see this when you implement firewalls correctly, it's going to shut down certain avenues. Now there's ways around it. You can do some DNS trickery and potentially fool the firewalls, do some firewalking. There's ways around it, but it does make it more difficult on the bad guy, which is what we want. We want to slow them down to the point where we can just keep locking them out so they can't get anywhere.
And this is where the game starts to really represent that true chess match, right? Because in real life, cybersecurity is not just set it and forget it like the easy bake oven. You're not just going to put it out there and say, okay, we're secure. The bad guys are always going to be finding ways to counter your security controls in place, and they'll pivot, and then you have to pivot and find new controls. And it's this back and forth, always trying to stay ahead of each other. And that's what cybersecurity is. And that's the way this game plays out once you get to this point.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting just to note here that all of these things you can research, these are all very real exploits and attacks. Like command injection is a well-known attack, cross-site request forgery, file inclusion. These are things you see, the different overflows. We're going to research weak passwords because, again, that's one of my favorites. I'm always finding weak passwords everywhere. But this is something that a lot of the red teamers on my team, they spend a lot of time researching these different areas, and some of them become somewhat specialized in this area. You might have someone who is specialized in doing overflows or is really good at web app hacking or researching. So I think this is very well represented when you're talking about a red team, and you can see the research and the people you guys had working on this.
Well, I would say 100% of the people that are the developers on this project are penetration testers.
All right, so we're still showing, even though we locked them out, we're still showing that server as compromised. And I think that's an interesting thing to note is how many times has there been some kind of compromise? And you're like, do we know if the malware is gone or not? Because you don't really know. You don't know if someone has lost connection or if they still have connection to that device. So it's interesting to think about that from that perspective. And we're still going through here. Remember, we still don't have backups. Did we get, no, we didn't get a budget yet. We still don't have any of our people. They're all tied up. So if we look at our people, we're still building our policies and procedures. So right now, we know we've been hacked and we're stuck in bureaucracy mode right now. We're like, we really need some money. We've been hacked. And I'm sure from the owner perspective, it might be, well, is it that bad? And we've all had those, I think, had those conversations in the past. So there's really nothing we can do here. Just kick it back over to the red team. And we've researched weak passwords. And I love this quote from Indiana Jones. We have top men working on it now. Who? Top men.
Yeah, that was a gem that everybody knows that quote, but Matt actually, found out who the official is that said that. But
it is great. So now we have 3 people back. We're still running some scans. We have 1 turn remaining for persistence. So I think we can do. Did we already do the host scan? Can we do port scans again? No, we can't.
Yeah. So basically, obviously, in order to do a host scan and find something, there has to be something with the internet facing,
right?
And there's kind of where like this double-edged sword comes into play, right? Because you can probably catch that remote user every now and then, but also when you do things like install a VPN, on one hand it protects you, but on the other hand, it adds to your attack surface.
So here's the thing. So I could do a host scan, but I had 3 hacking resources. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do social engineering again. And this is where I have a little bit of inside insight because I'm playing both sides. And I know there is no security awareness and in this organization. And in some cases, bad guys might be able to find that out. If they've been hacked into by social engineering before, they could be a target again. And it will probably work again if it worked once.
There's when it comes to the complexities of how social engineering works, going back to the back-end engine, there are certain cybersecurity controls that work better against certain attacks. Like, so for example, 2-factor authentication, cybersecurity training, awareness training, that kind of stuff makes it more difficult for the red team to be successful with social engineering, just like in real life.
And that's fantastic, because I think this helps show just how comprehensive you have to be when you're developing your cybersecurity plan for an organization, how much does go into it. And I think sometimes it's difficult to see or know, looking at from the outside, just how holistic everything is.
Yep, exactly.
And unfortunately here, see, we're still tied up in our our policies and procedures. We're tied up, still doing that. Lots of paperwork to write there, and lots of things to train on. Well, I should say train on, but I mean, I don't know if that includes training or not, or just writing them so we have them, because we still don't have our system backups. And things still not looking great over here. Hopefully we'll get that budget, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. Our persistence research is complete. That's fantastic. And again, top men we had working on that.
Oh, we have a duplicate flavor text.
All right. And we have our social engineering going. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run another host scan, because what we might see if we keep running host scans every now and then, we should find that remote user for a couple turns. And that's going to be a way we can potentially get in. All right, finally, our policies and procedures are complete. That was excruciating. And perimeter secure. Oh, and we got money. So this is great. So look at this. We got a budget increase. Isn't that amazing? And
it's funny how being compromised will compel management to open up the pocketbook.
Yeah, so we want to establish an incident response program. That's a good idea. We're going to do that. That's a great recommendation. And we're going to hire some new staff here. Do we have the money to do that? Yes, we do. We're going to hire a new staff. I don't know what his name is. We're just going to say his name is Jacob. We need Jacob to come help us. And that could be staff. That could also, again, this represents resources. So that could be outside consulting resources. Because how many of us use outside consultants? A lot of us do. And those are just part of your company or organization's resources. And we need them when we get into trouble. We can't always do everything by ourselves.
We actually, in the next versions of the game, we actually do have a differentiation between permanent staff and temporarily hired contractors to make it more realistic.
And that makes a lot of sense, because you see that a lot, especially with the incident response, where all of a sudden you end up spending a lot of money to get new incident response in for different people. All right, back here, and we are still working on our social engineering. We've got one more turn remaining. Still not finding anything on our host scan, which is good from the blue team perspective, a little not so good for the red team perspective. So we're going to do a host scan again, and next turn, we're going to hope we get lucky on our social engineering attack and see how well that works out. So we hired new staff. Jacob is here. And for those of you who know the office space close, what would you say you do here? Well, for several turns, and however many months turns represents, lots of policies and procedures. That's what we did here for a while. And so now we have two people. Not a lot of money left. So we have $6,500. So what can we do? Maybe backups? Backup sounds like a good idea. We're going to have Jacob work on some backups. And, the CISO, he's going to try again. We need more money. I know we just hired Jacob, but we're going to need some more money. And, how difficult is it after you just secured $50,000? And again, you said that $50,000 could be $100,000. It could be $200,000. It's relative. We need more money again. And sometimes as security professionals, it feels like we're constantly doing that. And we promise we're not doing that just to spend money. We're doing that because we need to.
It's like, welcome aboard. Now go find more money.
Right. And I've heard the phrase before, new cybersecurity people get into positions and they're like, well, we need some money to do these. And it's like, well, we hired you. Why do we need more? Why do we need any money? We hired you. All right, so our social engineering was successful.
But look what it did.
Oh, we got some PLCs.
So because you popped the historian, now you now know about the assets that talk to the historian, such as those programmable logic controllers in the process network.
This is gonna be fun. All right, and I think so. I need to do the host scan first before I do anything else. I have three other resources I can spend here. What do I want to do? And I don't think I dragged this, so we can start doing some things like finding public vulnerabilities. And you can find different vulnerabilities. So finding public vulnerabilities, that's the low-hanging fruit. So that'd be like using a Metasploit exploit. We can do some fuzzing to maybe create or develop on a exploiter ourselves, or we can reverse engineer to create a custom exploit. And just like
find 0 days.
Yeah. And just like in real life, that takes all of our resources and 3 whole turns to do. So that's pretty expensive. We'll take the middle road. We'll do some fuzzing and we'll find some public vulnerabilities too. Why not? We'll do those two. And that ties us up. But that's how we do it in real life. When we do pen testing, that's where we start. What public vulnerabilities are available? What fuzzing can we do? And in general, 0 days are pretty exclusive. There's very few 0 days actually out there. There's a lot in context, but there's a small amount compared to a lot of the other vulnerabilities out there. I think some of those statistics show that a lot of companies, they're still running unpatched systems and older systems that just have public vulnerabilities. Oh boy. Well, maybe it'll be easier when management sees this. Hopefully you get some money, but again, management doesn't have this perspective, and that's why I think this is a good way to show it. If you were able to show on something that looked this nice to your management, hey, we've been hacked, this is where they are in our systems, I think it'd be easier for management to make those decisions. But when they're trying to figure out exactly what the impact is, I think it's a little harder when you don't have context into how these things work.
Yep. Again, it goes back to compelling management. It goes back to understanding or getting management to understand what the risk is for those compromises, right? And this kind of represents that, and that you just because you have a compromised box, it may not actually be that high of a risk to your system. And so the value of the box, or how important that box that got compromised to your system, that plays into it's weighted, and that plays into whether or not you get budget or significant budget as well. So that factor is built into it.
And some people are asking what game this is. This is ThreatGen Red Vs Blue, and you can find this on Steam. And we actually have the developer here with us today. For those of you who are just joining, and we're going through a game right now between the blue versus the red. So the defenders versus the hackers. And right now, as you guys can see, we're a bit compromised right now, and we're doing our darndest to defend, but we have no backups, and it's causing some issues. And now we just found a vulnerability. So this is going to get very, very interesting very quickly.
And so for the newcomers, he's also playing in hot seat mode, which means he's basically playing against himself right now. In hot seat mode basically means where you take your turn and you pass it off to another person, and they take their turn. And what has just happened here is he did a host scan, and the reason why he now sees 2 compromised boxes or assets is because he had previously compromised an asset but was locked out earlier due to a segmented network. But now that he's back in and he did a host scan, now he rediscovered that box, and it's already compromised because he had previously compromised it.
So I can take advantage of that back door I basically left there to get right back into that system. And,
yep.
And this is what we talk about when we're talking about incident response. and how we want to stop people from being able to get in. And as pen testers, I think this is important. When you're pen testing a system, this is also why it is so important to not accidentally leave a backdoor that you put in a system when you're doing your pen testing. You want to make sure that's removed and done properly, because there is nothing worse than we're called on as cybersecurity professionals to help companies with their defenses and figure out their weaknesses. We don't want to be the cause of a breach. So that's just an important thing to think about. So now that we have these vulnerabilities, I think, what do you think? I think we should attack. Do we have the people? Oh, I don't think we do. We don't have the people yet to attack, because
Gotta wait around.
All 5. So we're gonna try and find some more public vulnerabilities, and we're gonna wait, because I think we have one more turn until our fuzzing is done, and then we'll get all of our people back, because finding vulnerabilities only takes one turn, and then we are going to attack that system and see if we can get in. Oh, someone in the comments said, Chris said unplug. We're going to say we can't unplug. And I'll give you a real life scenario. A company I worked with, they said they were e-commerce, and they said during their highest end time, they were making 30 million an hour. So they were unwilling to unplug their systems because they, to shut things down, because they're making 30 million in an hour for sales. And that was, the e-commerce company. So
that said,
it might be the right thing to do, but companies don't always do the right thing if they don't feel like the risk is high enough. Now, there's consequences for that.
Yep, you said it before. That's exactly what I was going to say. The another point is, so unplug. When we drop the next version of the game, 1.4, there actually is a more granular incident response system to where you can unplug.
Oh, that's gonna be fun. Yeah, this game, I just want to mention, I've been playing it since version 1, and I think I'm on 1.3 is the version I'm on right now, and it continues to improve and get better. So the team over at ThreatGen, you guys have done a really good job with this game. And I'm not saying that they didn't pay me to do this.
No, we made you buy the game.
Yeah, I bought the game. I found the game by myself. This is just a great game. So I wanted to share it with everyone so more people knew about it, because it's just really good, especially for training people on cybersecurity. All right, so our next step, we have 2 resources. We have 2 systems compromised. In our actions, we successfully created our incident response procedures, and we're going to activate our incident response. So that's going to, let me close this. We're going to activate our incident response, and we have to pick which system we're going to perform incident response on. So this would be if someone is trying to get rid of a server, we're going to take care of that terminal server. And then we're going to, when we free up some more resources, I think a couple of resources are still doing, we're still working on those system backups, although I don't know how well that's going to help when we're already compromised. I guess for the systems that aren't compromised. And we're still requesting some additional money. And we got 2 turns remaining. So next turn, we're going to activate incident response on the other system to try and get the hackers out of our systems. Someone left a comment saying, where is the chat taking place? So we are streaming in 5 different locations right now. So we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube. So there's lots of chat coming in from LinkedIn and YouTube and some Facebook. So we have chat kind of all over the place. So if I'm responding to chat messages and it sounds a little confusing and my eyes are darting around a little bit, it's because I have a couple different monitors and I'm trying to see when people are chatting and leaving messages. All right, and we found some vulnerabilities, fuzzing. So this is, more things we can attack. So this is great. So we got our 5 people here, and we are now going to use all 5 of our resources to launch our attack. So we're going to select our target, and let's take out.
So what's interesting is right there you see you can attack only the things that you have a pivot to. So even though those 2 PLCs have vulnerabilities, they're not attackable because of that network segmentation. So you don't yet have access into that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point to make. And I think for attacking, we're going to go ahead and we'll attack this remote user. And it's a Windows asset, and we can actually select what kind of attack we want to use. So we'll do an integer overflow, and we want manipulation because denial will just take the system down. Am I correct on that? And
denial of service will literally just take it down, and it's not useful to anybody. So as an attacker, you really don't want to do a denial of service unless there's a useful purpose. So for example, if you want to aid in your persistence or your covert attack hiding your tracks, you might want to do a denial of service to, say, an IDS sensor.
Oh, and you might want to do a denial of service to the SIM server, right? Because
exactly, right.
They wouldn't be able to detect what you're doing if the SIM server is down.
Of course, unless somebody's monitoring the SIM server. So, and there's a chance in the game, every denial of service of an IDS or a SIM server has a chance to be detected as being denied because of that fact that somebody could be watching it.
So someone mentioned what's the LinkedIn link for the live video. I did share that. And someone mentioned something about not Petya. I can't see the whole comment for some reason.
Yeah, I don't see the comment because I'm not looking at that, but not Petya was a malware campaign.
Yeah, and that came in from LinkedIn, and some of the comments on LinkedIn are a little separate, just because of we're streaming to so many different services at the moment. And all right, so we're back here. We're still performing incident response on that one, and our system backups were successful. So we have some backups now, and our request for budget was approved. Thank goodness. We're getting lucky in this game. We have some really good management in this game that understands this is not good. This is a threat, and we need to stamp out that threat. So we're getting some money. We're going to activate incident response, and that's going to tie up, again, all of our resources. So there's still a lot we need to do, and we've never done a vulnerability assessment. We've never done vulnerability mapping. We don't have a security awareness program in place, and we don't have 2-factor authentication. There's still quite a few things that we don't have in place yet. And, this is similar to what you see in a lot of environments. All right, successful attack. So our attack was successful. Successful manipulation. We are now a hacker.
So that's what we call our milestones, right? So individual successful actions can yield these pop-ups, but the real way to score points in this game is when you do a sequence of events that really signify something, then you get these big milestones like that.
And now if we look, so now we've compromised this remote user, and I think we can now we have a couple things we can run some host scans from and get a better idea of where we can potentially pivot to from some systems. So we're going to go ahead and run that. Trying to think what else we might want to do right now. Is there any service enumeration we can do right now? No, we're good on that. Yeah, I think that's good. We'll just find more public vulnerabilities because why not? It only takes a turn. IR expert. Oh, look at that. This is good. We had some of our team members did an incredible job here. We finally got rid of all the malware on the terminal server. Good job, Jacob and team. All right, but it's not over because if you look over here, we can see our remote user was compromised. So now we need to activate incident response again. There is no rest for the weary in this case. We are still compromised, and we need to stamp that out. And how many organizations have you heard of where they get hacked and they get rid of the malware and then they immediately get hacked again? I think this says a lot about that, and it's quite realistic. I love how we're playing a game, but this is literally part of what for a lot of us is our job every day, what we're dealing with and doing. All right, and you can see now that we've pivoted, not pivoted, we've done some additional host scans. Now we see a bunch of different things now. Now we can see where can we potentially attack, select target. So these are still our only 2 targets. We're going to try and attack this firewall gateway, and we'll do now correct me if I'm wrong. So the little star sign by weak password, does that mean that will be more successful?
Yeah, that means that that's a vulnerability that you've researched. If it has 2 little asterisks there, that means you've done advanced research, which I don't think you can do on weak passwords. I'm not sure. But yeah, so the number of stars by it means research, which means, yes, there's a chance it's more successful than one without the little star.
So we're going to do weak passwords because that's a thing, right? We got people with default passwords on firewalls all the time. I find this quite a bit. All right, so we're back. We finally cleaned up the issue on the historian mirror, and we got our 2 guys back, our 2 resources, I should say. And while the rest of the team are still working on getting rid of this remote user over here. So what are the things we want to do in our system right now? Well, we know they got in via social engineering, and that's probably not a good thing. So we want to do a security awareness program. And I know that as security professionals, it seems like we bash that over people's heads a lot, but it's because 70% of attacks or more do come in through phishing. And this game reflects that pretty well. I mean, you can see that phishing tends to be a very good way to get in. All right, so we can see here on this server, we can, as we click on these different icons, we can actually see the different vulnerabilities for each of these. So we can see on the terminal server, we have command injection, and these are some 0 days actually. And on here, we have a bunch of different attacks. So it looks like our attack action on the gateway firewall was unsuccessful.
Did you ever install 2-factor or anything like that? There are certain security controls that you put in place that makes general password attacks more.
We did not actually. So I'm wondering if we should just try doing weak passwords again, or if we should try something else.
You should try it again. Yeah. I think it really comes down to sometimes just like real life. It may take a little longer to run a password cracking sequence and things like that.
So we're going to run that, and that's going to take all of our resources. And if you want to play an interesting thing with this game too, and this really messes with the balance, but I've gone into the settings and adjusted the hackers to have 99 hacking resources, and the devastation that can be done when you just raise your number of resources is insurmountable. And just an interesting scenario if you find the game too easy, which I don't think you will, but just raise the number of resources the bad guys have, and it's interesting to see how much more damage they can do. All right, so we got our 2 guys back. We finally got rid of that issue on the remote server. So we finally have a little bit, we can breathe now. The emergency is over. But at this point, we should probably do a vulnerability assessment. We know that they're getting in through that, and we should probably do that. It's going to be expensive, but we got the money. We're going to do a vulnerability assessment. And maybe that's a vulnerability management program. Maybe that's us running Nessus and implementing that across our enterprise, but we got to do it because we right now have no idea what vulnerabilities we got.
I just realized why your password attack didn't work here in your last turn. Well, okay, I'm wrong. I was going to say, because this is interesting. I was going to say it didn't work because the pivot box, the pivot asset, was cleaned before you had a chance to compromise the firewall, but apparently it wasn't. So you actually were able to compromise that firewall before the pivot box was cleaned. So you're still in, even though they cleaned the network. That was lucky for the red team.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely some interesting. So we can do a port scan of that. And I don't want to do any more. Well, actually, I think I do want to do a host scan because I compromised this gateway. I want to see if there's any additional things I can reach. And can I do any? No, there's nothing to do. Service enumeration for. And how many people do I got? I got 3 resources. So let's go down and we'll do some research. What research? Let's research command injection. And I'll save. I don't know if there's any more to find, but let's find some more public vulnerabilities. Why not?
I kind of feel like
I enjoy exploit DB ever so much. I spend a lot of time there.
I was going to say,
I hear it in the comments. 2-factor, implement 2-factor. Yes, that is going to be the next thing we implement, and we're going to do that right now. We have 2 resources, and we're going to do the 2-factor authentication, and that will significantly or should significantly increase some things. Oh, so we can actually see here. This is the firewall that we have.
It was the gateway firewalls. Yeah, I thought it was the PCN firewall that you were attacking. So that makes sense on why you're able to attack it.
Yeah, so we're at this firewall here. So we were pretty successful to an extent because they were all the way in here at one point, and we had the remote guy compromised, and they were getting pretty close to our environmental control systems over here. Our distiller over here was definitely in danger, so we were able to clear that up. But 2-factor, we're going to do that now, and that should definitely help quite a bit.
So you can move your firewall now underneath the internet because now you might know that's kind of what that is.
That's true, but if we were playing single player, I wouldn't know that. And this is why this is a little bit of an unfair advantage on both sides, because when you're playing this on single player, and for those who are just joining, when you play against the computer, you can't see anything. So this is all you see if you're on the red team. So you don't know where any of these devices go or in what order and what the network topology looks like, because you have to figure it out, so to speak. So now we have that. We have some other devices here. It looks like on the historian mirror, we can potentially take that back over again. One of the things I might do is I might prepare a covert attack. I think that's what I'm going to do. It's going to take a long time, but what this is going to let me do is it's going to make my next manipulation attack harder to detect. So some of the systems that we're using, maybe their SIM won't detect it if I research this. So we're going to do that and try and get a little stealthy so they can't do their incident response. All right, and all of our people are still tied up doing things. Jacob and team. At this point, Jacob should be promoted. I mean, he's been here a while. He's been through some things. We have another turn on our vulnerability assessment, and we have 2 more turns for our 2-factor authentication. And that sounds like projects that I deal with every day, working with companies. They're working on implementing 2-factor, and they're working on their vulnerability management. I mean, this could easily be a system that you're working on at work right now, similar projects. All right, we research command injection, adding some more devastation to our arsenal. Let's see, can we do any? Yeah, look at all the things we can now port scan. So we have a lot of things we can now start to discover. And this is why I said in the settings, it can get the hackers quite the unfair advantage if you boost up the hacking resources. Because in times like this, you can just go across and scan everything. And the thing to think about is not every hacking organization is going to have every, oh, you said kill the PLCs. I can't right now because I don't think I could even attack, because it's going to say I don't have enough because I need 5 resources. But I don't even think, the only target I have is the remote user. So I know these things exist, but I don't have an entry point to actually get in and do it right now because they kicked me out of the system.
Right. The network segmentation blocked access to that, but he originally found out about those because he compromised the data historian, which knows about the PLCs.
Yeah, so that might be a little confusing for those who are watching. I can't pivot to them right now. That's why I'm kind of scanning some of these devices, because once we switch back to the blue team right now, those devices that I'm scanning right now is all the devices between all of these devices and this firewall. Those are the things I can pivot to right now. To pivot to the next area, I need to find the next firewall and compromise it and get through it so I can slowly get through. And then once I can do that, I can get through to these PLCs down here. So I have a long way to go.
So just real quick, there's something interesting. Notice the color of your PLCs.
Yeah, they are
yellow tinted or orange. That means they are currently denied. You knocked over your PLCs because you did a vulnerability assessment on a process control network without taking the necessary precautions.
Oh, yeah, I did do that because I didn't put in any of the safe testing methods.
Now, what happens is you have so many turns of a PLC being denied before it damages the process. And I think also in this version of the game, you lose money every turn with assets denied.
All right, so I guess that means I should probably invest in safe testing methods. Is that the way for me to fix that?
You should probably do incident response to fix those before you break a process.
Response. Okay.
I feel like I'm narrating I feel like I'm narrating an esport game. So what do you guys think? Would this make a good esports game? Maybe a little passive, relaxed one?
Oh, I think speaking for myself, I think this is a lot of fun. So we're gonna take that back. So if you want to cancel an action, you can go in here and do that. So we're gonna take that back because we want to do some incident response, and that takes 2 of our resources. And we'll go ahead and hit this thing, and we want to hit this too because we want to kick them out of our network. And then we're gonna end. We're now on turn 21. We've played a lot of turns so far, and we can actually see, oh, can we actually get access to that PLC now? I don't think so. No. So
especially when it's denied. Whenever anything is denied, which is that orange, yellowish orange tint, nothing has access to it, not even the red team.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So it's the denial of service. So we still have some other people working on, we're still preparing that covert attack. So we have 2 resources here. I don't want to tie them up for too many turns because I want to try and attack something next turn. So is there anything here that just takes 1 turn? We already researched default credentials. We got weak passwords. Nope. So I'm just going to, I don't know if there's even any devices I can find, but it only takes 1 turn. We're just going to see if we have the CMS server here, the corporate server. We can do a port scan, I believe, on those. So we're going to do that, and we'll run that. Well, not even a port scan. I'm sorry. It is, I want to do a service enumeration. That's what I'm trying to think of. And we want that DMZ firewall because we want to be able to pivot to those other systems. So we're going to go ahead and attack that, or not attack that, but enumerate it to figure out if there's any services we can attack. And we now have our 2-factor authentication. And I think that was Chad from the chat. I think you were talking about the 2-factor. So we now have it. It took a while, but now we have it. So we're moving forward slowly in this game. So now we have 2 guys back, and we're going to do incident response again. And we're going to hit this guy. And the other incident response action we're doing still has another turn remaining. So that's why this thing is still a skull and this thing is still a skull. because it's still going to take some time to get them back up. Backdoor created. So now we have our sneaky attack ready. And I think what I might do is, for my attack, I should have two options. I can either take out the DMZ firewall or the remote user. And this is where I'm going to cheat a little bit, because I know that on the blue team side, I'm going to kick me out. So we're going to do the remote user, and hopefully that'll be covert enough that they won't see that I've compromised that. And we'll see how that looks. All right, we got two more of our people back, and our incident response was successful. So now we're going to go ahead and do incident response. And this is costing us some money every time we do incident response. This gets expensive. And we're going to do some incident response on this. And that takes up our guys. So we're getting better. We got two-factor. We got network segment. We still don't got VPN, which in today's world would be unacceptable. That would be the number one thing we'd need, right?
Check your log again. I think the incident response on the other PLC might not have been successful.
Authentication. No, it was successful. IR was successful.
Well, now, but look, one's still orange. There might be a slight bug there where, and I think.
Oh no, this is the first one I cleared, and this is the one that's still going.
Oh, I thought you did both of them in one turn. Okay.
No, they were separate turns. So no, that's still going. It's good. It's all good. Jacob and team are working really good over here. And if you want your team members to be sentimental, you can give them names. Just it's what I do, because I'm strange and have been inside for far too long the last 3 weeks. All right. So we can actually see here that PLC has recovered. And look at this. So we have compromised that remote user. We were successful. Woo! We got access to that. So let's see if we can launch another attack. We're going to try and take over this DMZ. And we're going to do default credentials. And we got the little asterisk here. So we know that we have researched default credentials, because you guys know how much I love hacking with default credentials. So we're going to try and take this DMZ firewall and get as many remote stuff. Now, if I remember correctly, after we prepare a covert attack, we have to do it again, correct? Every time we do it.
Yeah, so every time it's a successful attack, you have to do it again.
Yeah, so that's one thing. If you want to be a crafty hacker, it's going to take a lot more time to make sure your stuff doesn't get discovered. And that's very realistic. When my team and I are doing a pen test, it takes, if we want to be craftier and we don't want to get detected by a SIM, it takes a long time. We got to go real slow. So turn 24. So we can see one thing that we didn't talk about a whole lot is we see all these exclamation points. Those are vulnerabilities. So our vulnerability scan came back, and we have a lot of vulnerabilities everywhere. So this organization, I don't think we've never run system patches or done anything once. So we have IR going on this thing. We should probably start patching some stuff. So let's do some system patches. Oh man, we got to do this one at a time. This is going to be a while. We're going to want to patch that, because immediately they're going to try and get back in. And what else do we want to patch? What do you guys think in the chat? What should we patch?
Think about your criticalities and your risk versus reward.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm thinking we want to patch the stuff over here. That making a lot of sense to me.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, I'm thinking we want to patch the ICS systems. I think ICS, the S stands for systems, so I said systems twice.
It's like saying Sahara Desert.
Yeah. All right, so we successfully got access to that DMZ firewall. And we see we found the engineering workstation. Now that is if I remember correctly, that's a pretty valuable machine to find.
That's the Achilles heel.
That is the one that's going to have access. So I think we want to do. Oh, not service. Is it? No. What's the one for that? Oh, we need to find vulnerabilities for it. We scanned it. We need to find vulnerabilities. So we're going to do some find vulnerabilities. We want to do some fuzzing. And we're going to find some stuff on this workstation, because if we can get into this workstation, we can use that workstation to get into the control systems. And then we can make some fireworks happen. And by fireworks, I mean blow things up. All right, so we got 2 of our people back. Our incident response action was successful, but I think we got a lot of patching we need to do. So we're gonna do some more patching. We're gonna do some firmware upgrades. Let's fix that. Let's do system patching. Let's fix the engineering workstation, because I'm playing both sides. I know we're attacking that machine, so I'm going to cheat here on both sides.
In the next release, there is actually an option to put in a patch management program to do patches by zones, so you don't have to do it one by one, but you still have to implement a patch management program to do so.
And that makes a lot of sense, because once you get to a bigger environment, you have to have some automatic patching. All right, so where are we at here? So they kicked us out of the gateway firewall. So we're still in the DMZ, but I think we lost connection to that. So I think if I try and do a scan, oh no, I still have access to that DMZ firewall. I guess because it's the DMZ, so that is still, would that still be outside facing that?
I'm not sure why you have access to the DMZ firewall right now. There's and maybe, did you ever compromise the remote user?
I did, but now the remote user disappeared.
So there's a weird mechanic that works there, and it's kind of like real life. So if you still have a compromised remote user, even though the remote user logged out, you can still see what the remote user can see. So call it a feature, call it a bug, but I think that might be resolved in 1.4, but that's the reason why you can still see the DMZ firewall.
Oh, that makes sense, and that makes my life even better, because now I can do some host scanning, and we're going to do some finding of public vulnerabilities, because I still want to take out this workstation.
Just like that remote user is a pain in your rear in the game, that remote user was a pain in the rear from a development perspective too. The intricacies that went along with making sure it's in, but it's out, it logs in, it logs out, and in half turn, regular turn, that remote user gave me headaches for weeks.
Well, and that's an interesting point to make, when right now everyone is remote. I mean, think about it right now, almost, if not 90% of office workers right now are likely remote. And all of these vulnerabilities are definitely going to be an issue. Okay, so we see the DMZ firewall compromised. So now we can do some incident response there. So we're going to do that, and that's going to take up our resources. And our other guys are still working on updating firmware. And as you can see, we still got a lot of patches we need to do. All right, and our remote user is back. And here's an interesting part. So notice how when we were the blue team, we didn't notice the remote user was compromised, even though we have a SIM in place, because we did a covert attack on that. So they don't know that we still have access to that. And I believe the remote user is the one we're pivoting to for the engineering workstation, although I'm not 100% on that. I think that is.
So here's what's interesting about that remote user is that if you do not have if you do not have a VPN in place, that remote user could be connected to any one of the zones. But if you put a VPN in place, then the remote user is corralled into the DMZ.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. All right, what do we want to attack? I don't know if we want to attack anything, because I still just want to get access to this remote station. We're going to go big. We're going to reverse engineer and try and find some 0 days. and we're going to go for broke there. Firmware updated. All right, we are making progress, but look, we knocked over another system, so now we have to do some incident response there. This is why you need to make sure you do safe vulnerability testing processes against your sensitive systems. I think one of the worst offenses, the one time I ran Nessus on a system, this was years ago when I first started, and we hit a printer, and the printer actually printed out a paper that said help with a bunch of wingdings on it as it was being scanned by Nessus. And when you're talking about certain devices, when you're running different vulnerability scans, they're fragile, and depending on what kinds of scans and things you do to them, it can break them in ways you're not prepared for.
That's exactly right. In fact, that's our specialty at ThreatGen, is doing cybersecurity on industrial control systems. In fact, those of you that may not be aware, two of the developers of this game, myself and Aaron Shabib, we were two of the contributing authors, the main authors for Hacking Exposed industrial control systems, and that's where we put a lot of the knowledge from that book into this game.
All right, so we got 2 turns remaining because we're going for broke. We're finding some 0 days, so it takes a lot of time. Just like in real life, it takes a lot of time to find 0 days. One of the comments is, how do you define the most critical systems among those? That's a great question. How do you define the most critical systems anywhere? Because that's an ongoing issue a lot of us have, is what is the most critical systems in your environment. For this game, it's pretty easy to an extent, maybe. Obviously, the SCADA firewall and that network, it's dangerous because you could actually potentially blow it up, blow up the distillery and cause mass damage. But for your organization, it might be your mail server, it might be your AD server, it might be your file server, depending on the information you have on there. So for every organization, you're going to have to figure out, from your perspective, for the organization, what is the most important asset. There was a company, and I won't name the company, but it's a company that makes crayons. And there's only a couple companies that make crayons, so you can probably figure it out. But I talked to one of their pen testers, and one of the things they told me was, it was their internal pen testers, and they said they ran penetration tests and red team engagements every single week. And you might wonder, why would a crayon company be so concerned about the security in their systems? And it's because they're worried about their IP being stolen. For them, it was their secret recipe being stolen. I mean, you think about things like, it might sound funny, but KFC's secret recipe for making their chicken, that might be an important, valuable resource for that company that they want to protect. And you might want to put some more protections on who has access to that data and how they can get to it.
Yeah, you're right. The bottom line is what is most critical is really dependent on the objectives and then the business of your company. So in this particular case, in this game, this is a refinery, and it's an oil company with both upstream, midstream, and downstream, which means drilling, pipelines, and a plant. So in this case, it's, this company produces and refines something like a chemical or petroleum, and therefore the most critical assets are those things that would lead access to direct control or manipulation or damage of those process controllers. And to that end, that HMI that is denied is less critical to the process than the actual PLCs, since the PLCs control the process.
And you can notice here we have a remote. We figured out on the blue team side that our remote user was compromised. We finally figured it out. It took us however many turns, equivalent to potentially how many months or years that we didn't know that this user was compromised. The most egregious offense I've ever heard was a MacBook, I think it was, that was supposedly compromised for 10 years before they figured out it was compromised. And because the IT administrators at the time didn't believe that MacBooks could get hacked. So they didn't install any security software, no antivirus, no anything. And there was a backdoor in there for almost 10 years. So that's
what I was going to say. Macs aren't supposed to be hackable.
And I hear that all the time still. It's a pandemic in and of itself.
Too soon.
I know. But all right, remote. So we're going to go back to our red team here, and we're still just plugging away, doing
research. Never mind. I thought that, did the blue team now see if the remote user was finally compromised?
Yes,
because
that's compromised. So
so even though you do a remote, or even though you do a covert attack, at some point there's always a chance that the blue team will pick it up and see it.
And that's realistic, and it makes sense. So we have our 3 guys here. So we're going to do incident response. We got to get rid of this guy. This is causing issues, and we're still spending the majority of our time just trying to patch systems. I mean, oh my goodness, the things we got to patch. All right. We are a 0-day hunter. Looks like we were able to do some research. We got the bug finder. We found vulnerabilities using all 3 techniques. We are now true vulnerability researcher. Among the elite, and that's true. If you're doing reverse engineering, you really are probably elite in your own field. It takes a lot to go in there, and especially we look at assembly code. It's daunting. It's pretty amazing, the skill level. It's a shame that the bad guys are using those skill sets to harm others. All right, so what do we want to do? If we attack, the only thing we can attack right now is that gateway firewall. And we're going to get kicked out of the remote user, so we're going to go ahead and attack that. We're going to attack. And we're going to do weak passwords again, because why not? We got 1 resource left, and what can we do? Well, we can't do a lot with, we could do safe testing methods. Let's do that so we stop knocking everything over. Look, we knocked over the industrial radio. That's no good. All right, we got our 5 people back, and our attack action was unsuccessful. And that's likely because we have 2-factor authentication in place. See, it was a very good idea for us to put that 2-factor in place. So now maybe we'll try something else, like a format string error, and see if that works. All right, so we were able to do incident response. We're going to have to do it again, because we're going to have to hit that. And we're going to request budget, because we need some more money. We're almost out of money. So we don't have anything. I mean, we have this knocked over. Maybe that'll help us get budget. But we don't have anything compromised right now. So we may not see a budget increase this year.
But you have demonstrated that you have vulnerabilities, and there has already been a compromise. So management is aware.
That's true. That is very true. All right, so we were able to get into the gateway firewall. So this is great. So we're back in the game, so to speak. We can do some host scanning here and start trying to pivot. If we attack, can we just immediately? I don't think we can. Oh, we can immediately attack some of these other things again. Okay, cool.
Right, because number 1, you don't have to redo host scans because you already know about those. You've already been inside. You just had to regain access. So now once you have access back to that zone, you can get back to work.
Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take over this firewall. We're going to try to anyway. Default credentials enabled.
With an asterisk.
Yeah, I think that might work. Because even if we have 2-factor, I don't think that might not work for a firewall, would it?
Default credentials, it does still... It applies more to Windows systems than it does network devices. In fact, I don't even think it does apply to network devices in this game.
Okay, I was just curious on like how that was programmed, because I love the attention to detail that you guys have put into this game. There's just for those of you who might be joining in, I saw a couple people enter the room. We are playing ThreatGen Red Vs Blue, and this is a game you can get it on Steam, and we're looking through. It's a great game. It gamifies a lot of things we see in cybersecurity. And we're playing the red versus the blue team. We're playing as both sides right now. And right now on our blue team, all of our resources are allocated. We have a couple people doing incident response. We got our CISO is requesting budget. We got some ICS safe testing methods. That's probably Jacob doing that. Because Jacob, he's our guy. He does a lot of things. Hired him a couple years ago.
I'm confused. Did you ever explain why you called one of your staff members Jacob? I must have missed that.
I did not. There was a guy I worked with a long time ago. His name was Jacob, and he was one of the best system engineers and one of the smartest people I ever worked with. So now when I refer to a system engineer who I think is really intelligent and really good at their job, I call them Jacob. Because he's just really good. And he may not see this cast, never know I said that, but just know you're a good guy. I'd love to hire you. One day in the future, work with you again. He was a great guy to work with. And it's amazing in this field because sometimes you end up working with a lot of great people, and sometimes you move to different places. And later in your career, you could end up working with those same people again. It's amazing. But all right, so we successfully compromised that DMZ. Let's see what we can attack next. All right, so now we can go after the terminal server or the historian server. Let's go the terminal server. Command injection with an asterisk. That's what we're gonna do. Oh, I thought I selected that. Oh, I didn't hit the plus. There we go.
Yeah, you just hit select target again.
My bad. Okay, here we go. We're good. Plenty of time on the clock still. All right, we finally have safe testing methods in place. So we'll stop accidentally taking down, our distillers and our stuff over here, because that was bad. But now look, we got ourselves in a pickle again. So now we have to do incident response, and we're gonna hit the gateway firewall, and we don't have any other people. So what are we gonna have them do? Well, could do some patching. Terminal server. Let's patch the terminal server.
Another interesting thing about the patching program in the blue team side is, you could go through and you can look at all the vulnerabilities and kind of see what kind of vulnerabilities they are to decide what you want to do next, like patching and what security controls you want to put in place. However, the game is also designed to where you don't really have to know anything about it. You can just hit, okay, I'm going to patch or I'm going to harden the system. And the things that are available to you to do that, they're the ones that the targets show up. So it kind of guides beginners as well.
Matthew said, with all these vulnerabilities, you should be able to get budget almost every time you request it. And if only that were true, Matt, if only that were true. I've worked in environments, and the great thing about being a consultant is you get to see a lot of things and meet a lot of cool people and interact with a lot of companies. The sad thing about being a consultant is you see a lot of things that give you nightmares for a while. And I've seen a lot of organizations that things are really bad, but there's just still no investment to fix it. And it's kind of a shame. You would think it would just make sense with today's world and how things are, but it's still not. I find even today as cybersecurity professionals, we still spend a lot of time justifying money and justifying costs. And it's not that, and I think I said it earlier, it's not that we as security professionals are just trying to spend money. We're just trying to make sure we implement everything that's required to reduce the risk. And sometimes it's difficult from an executive perspective to understand that risk. And that's part of our job, to help them understand those risks and make those decisions. All right, so from the blue perspective, we got our budget. So we are 3 for 3. We have good management here. Every time we've requested a budget, they've given us budget. So this is great. But we still don't got enough to hire new staff, and we kind of need new staff. So we're going to go right back and ask for a budget again.
Now, this is where you might not get it. So in the game, typically the rules are set into the game to where when you need budget and you can prove that you need budget, you get budget. But there is still enough random variables involved in the algorithms to where it mimics real life, just like that, to where there may be other extenuating circumstances externally that you're unaware of to where you don't get the budget. And asking for budget twice in a row like that without spending or using anything might be one of those circumstances.
It might, and we'll have to see exactly what happens. But it'll be interesting. So we're going to try it. We'll see what happens. They say no. They say no. That is life. All right, so I think our attack was unsuccessful. It was. So we're going to try again. And
you can also try to do the advanced research of that particular vulnerability to improve your chances.
And that's true too. And I'm trying to think, because I'm going back and forth, and this is where some of the strategy plays into this game, which is why I like it so much, is do I prepare a covert attack, or do I try and compromise as much as possible so that they can't even keep up in their incident response with everything I have compromised? So it's kind of an interesting game of cat and mouse going on. I'm going to try and attack the remote user because I want to get into that system, because I'll still be into that system even if I get kicked out of these. So we'll see if that works. So we were able to clear out the one incident response was successful. So we got rid of this one. We're going to have to do incident response on this one. We have one person left. We're going to have to do some system patches. And there are a lot of things we could patch right now.
Data server.
But.
Or PLC. PLC, sorry, I missed that. PLC is definitely your priority.
Yeah, that has to be the priority. And we have some other things here. So you can see we have weak passwords here, default credentials, weak passwords, outdated software. We got a lot of stuff here. All over the place. So we still have not even implemented a VPN, guys. We just have not had the resources to do it. Our remote user is just plugging in directly to everything, or they're not even VPN'd off, because we're constantly doing incident response to kick the bad guys out of our systems. I mean, we've been hacked, like 15 times so far. Not looking great. I mean, we're keeping them at bay, but we keep getting taken over. All right, so action was successful, but we don't see the remote server, but see that we still have access to this. So that's, again, that same thing that you said before, was because we compromised that, we probably have access in. So if we do attack, we can still attack some of these things. So Let's attack the terminal server. Has a critical one because we have command injection there, and we can try taking that. Blue team, we're still doing incident response, has 1 turn left, patching has 1 turn left, and budget. So there's nothing else we can do. So again, we ran out of resources, but we still have budget. So this is where we get into. Yep, we are requesting. Someone in the comments mentioned we should request more budget. We are trying. We are trying to request as much budget as possible. We have our bureaucrat in there, our CISO who deals with all those problems, so we don't have to, doing the best. So you see, we did get access to the terminal server now. So we are successfully getting into a lot of devices almost faster than they can keep us out. So that is good in some respects. So I wonder if we can. Yes, so I can do a host scan. I want to do a host scan on the remote user because I might find some things. I want on the DMZ firewall because I already have that. And we can do some port scans on some of these other things so I can figure out what some of these other devices are. All right. So we can see we're still having lots of issues with these things. We're going to have to, again, spend all of our money. We have to do it. We got to spend all of our people and all of our money on incident response. I mean, that's all we can do. And you can see how this can, it is very much the cat and mouse back and forth here between the red and the blue.
Oh, you got another knocked over PLC.
Oh, I do. Oh, man.
Now, granted, the red team sees that, and you have to pretend the blue team, but when you get over there.
Yeah, I know. I know. Let's see. So, did it actually say my host scan action was unsuccessful? It was.
Probably because you're scanning in a zone that already has all of the assets enumerated there already. But for example, I was trying to look and see why that PLC got knocked over, because you didn't do another vulnerability scan, did you?
No, I didn't. I want to do surface enumeration on this engineering workstation because I was trying to figure out why I couldn't do vulnerabilities on that, and I just realized I never did surface enumeration on it. So that was my bad. I
saw somebody mention that in the comments earlier.
Yeah, I just forgot to do it. It happens. You miss things. All right, and everyone's allocated for another turn. So we have nothing. I think we're still trying to do budget. Yep, request budget action was unsuccessful. So we did not get any more.
Right,
budget.
and that's what I said. And the reason why is because you requested budget, you got it, and then you went right back and tried to request budget again without even using any of the budget you got the first time.
Right, and I'm sure it was, how dare you?
You're gonna get sent on an unpaid vacation.
Right, it's not going to be pretty. I'm gonna have to answer to that. I walked right back in there. I need more money. 40,000 isn't enough, and yeah, that wasn't a good 3 days or 3 months. However, this is, so we spent a lot of time.
It's an alternate universe measurement of time.
Well, it's amazing because there was one time I played this game and I just had awful luck, and every time I requested a budget, I didn't get one, and I just kept playing through the game and no budget, and it was just a really bad time. And it reminded me of a couple of dark days for a couple of different companies I worked with where, it was the same thing. There's no budget for anything. And I get it. There's business priorities, but sometimes you got to have a budget. All right. So we need this PLC's knocked over again. So again, we need to do incident response. So it's going to take 2 people. And finally, we have 2 more people that can do some more things. We might want to do some vulnerability mapping. That might be a good thing to do. We might want to do some ICS verification. Change default credentials, actually. I think that's an important one to do. We got default credentials all over the place. And so let's do that there. Let's do that there. There's a lot to do. There's lots of patches we need. There's default credentials. We probably need to run another vulnerability scan at this point. We just don't have enough resources.
Here's a pro tip. Number 1, don't worry about your vulnerability mapping right now. That's just a cheaper way to find vulnerabilities. If you don't have much budget, then vulnerability mapping will help you find vulnerabilities. It's like looking for public vulnerabilities from the red team. Pro tip number 2 would be doing things like penetration testing are going to help you root out 0 days as the blue team.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to actually leave these 2 resources here because I want to get all 5 back, because we have a directory transversal vulnerability that we're going to try and take advantage of on this engineering workstation on the next turn. And all right, we got 2 of our people back, and Yeah, we still got a lot of things we want to patch, like that SCADA server. That's probably a good idea. What are these things down here? Incorrect access control. So where would we fix that?
System hardening.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I bet that's system, configuration based. So we're going to do that. System hardening is a good idea. And we definitely want to fix that there. We want to fix that there. Yeah, I know, I'm out of resources. And we got all 5 back. All right, so now we are going to attack the I'm locked out now. Just when I was in. Let's try. Yeah, we'll just do integer overflow, and we'll try and get back into that remote user. That's our friend. We get into that guy a lot, and it doesn't even look like there's any vulnerabilities over here on this guy, according to the blue team. But we've got
0 days.
Yeah. Well, we should probably do a pen test, and we got the money to do it, and we got the people. So let's go ahead and do a pen test. We're gonna have some people come in and figure that out for us.
And here's another pro tip: just because you do a vulnerability assessment and or a pen test, you're not automatically necessarily going to find all of the vulnerabilities on each asset. There's a chance you're going to miss some. And so just like real life, you're going to have to redo vulnerability assessments, redo pen testing to try to root all of those out.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I kind of figured that was the case. Oh, and look, we have a new attack method here that is a 0 day that we didn't have last time on this engineering workstation. So let's go ahead and attack that, and we're going to use the 0 day. We got to attack the remote server first. So the remote server, that failed last time, and that is integer overflow XSS. So we might actually do some research because we want that to be able to work. So let's look at our research here. Integer overflow. We're going to go ahead and research that, and let's also do some more. We can't do any port scans right now because we're not in. How many people do we got left? We got 3 people left. Let's see where social engineering gets us.
Let's see. You've got 2-factor authentication, right? And you've done a security awareness training. So the chances of social engineering are going down because the blue team has put in the necessary controls to lower that chance. Now there's always going to be a chance, but you've got all those controls that counter social engineering, and that plays into real life in that social engineering is going to work better in a more immature network with less security controls and less training. Whereas as the network matures, there's always a chance for social engineering to work, but better trained staff and more security controls in place are going to make it harder.
And that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious. We're just going to try it. We're going to see if it fails.
Absolutely. Will. You got to try. We got
to try. I mean, if I'm being honest, I want the blue team to win. I do a lot of pen testing, but I want the blue team to win here. And in real life, you should want the blue team to win too. You don't want the bad guys to win.
Public service message.
Oh, which message?
No, saying that was your public service message.
That was my public service message. All right, so we got 2 people. There's a lot of things we can do here, and it's where it gets tough because there's a lot to do. We know that, we don't got 3 people, so we can't do the security skills training. We really do need that VPN. So we're gonna put Jacob on that. He's gonna do VPN for us. And what can we do with 1 person? We can do patching. What do we want to patch? We'll patch historian. And we're still working on our exploit research over here and our social engineering. And we're still working on stuff over here. And excellent. So we have integer overflows is complete. So if we want to do advanced research of integer, that's going to take 4 resources in 2 turns. So we're not going to do that. We are going to do Do I just have one turn left on those other guys? Yep. So I'm just going to wait till next turn, get all my guys back. So we finally have a VPN installed. It took us 44 turns. We finally got that installed. Hopefully you were able to get installed quicker than us if you're playing. That took a lot longer than it probably should have. All right. So we got 2 people. What can we do? We got the penetration test going on. We still got a lot of patches and default credentials we got to change. So let's get rid of some of those. We got default credentials there. We got default credentials on the corporate router. Admin. It's just no good. If you have admin on your credentials, you want to change them. All right, we got all of our people back here. Let's see. So now we see we did some research on integer overflow, and now we see that is a much better attack vector. So we have a much better chance of getting in now. Trying to think. I might want to be patient here and prepare a covert attack. That might be the best option here. We're going to do that.
Yeah, especially when you start getting to the point later in the game to where the blue team is successfully starting to patch and clear things off. You need to find some persistence.
And we're going to have our guys do some research on some other stuff because our red team wants to be the best they can.
And if you think about it, the longer the game goes on, the advantage starts to shift to the blue team. So in the beginning of the game, the advantage goes to the red team. And then as the game goes on, the longer the game goes, advantage shifts to the blue team. And that makes sense, true to real life. And that the more mature your network security gets, then the harder it is for the bad guys to get in.
Absolutely. And I think that makes a lot of sense because that's how it is in real life. When you have a mature cybersecurity program, you're much better off. You can do things. You're much more resilient against cyber attacks once you have a mature system in place. All right, we have 4 people back now. We got a lot of people for once, so we can do some pretty big things right now. We could implement a secure development life cycle, or we could get rid of a lot of those issues. We could update oh wow, we need to update antivirus a lot of places. All right, we're gonna clear some of that out. We did our pen test. We should probably do another vulnerability assessment because we haven't run those in a while. Let's enforce strong passwords.
And that's the remaining. I think that's the remaining thing that you have to do to where you have all 3 of the controls in the game to counter social engineering. Now, there's still always a chance, but that's the 3 main ones.
Right, and that could take. I'm not sure how many turns that's going to take. Oh, that's only 1 turn, so that won't be bad. So we'll see how this pans out. We're still doing our research over here. Our social engineering action was unsuccessful, so we thought it might be. We figure we'd give it the old Hail Mary try, and we didn't get anywhere. All right. We now have maximum defense. We have implemented some additional securities, password policies, strong passwords. We're doing good. This is good. Our team over here is doing some good things. All right. Let's see. We want to do ICS vendor before applying patches. So this is what's knocking over some of our stuff, isn't it? When we're doing our vulnerability assessments, or is that the safe testing method?
Oh, that's what it was. So yeah. So what happens is you have ICS safe testing methods in place, which keeps you from knocking over a PLC during a vulnerability assessment. But yeah, if you start patching something without getting vendor certification, yeah, that's probably how you knocked over that PLC before, because you implemented a patch or you did something to that PLC without a vendor certification or whatever, and yeah, it knocked it over.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I love the attention to detail here. And the nice part is you can figure out that you need to do those things without knowing behind what those things mean. but you can still figure it out. Like one of the things I just love is in here, you can click on any of these question marks and it will tell you what the real world impact is, which is fantastic. It's just such a great learning tool. All right, we got 2 more of our people back, and our covert attack will be done in 1 turn. We're just gonna find some public vulnerabilities because we want to make sure we have all of our people back. Full asset update. Yes. Our commitment to keep everything updated is impressive. I know. We're good at what we do. We're good. No rest for the weary, though. New vulnerabilities are sure to pop up eventually. I know. And antivirus update. Always good to have antivirus, including your Macs. Remember, Mac, even if you have a Mac, you need some antivirus. There's my second public service announcement for the day. Oh, we got some 0 days here. Quite a few. We got to figure that. How do you get rid of 0 days in this game?
The same way you get rid of anything else. You patch, and if you know about them, then you can patch them or harden them or whatever.
Yeah, we got a lot here. So we are gonna take care of that remote user because that's the one we're literally attacking right now. So we'll see if we're still able to get in. So integer overflow. Here we go. See if we're able to get in, and then we'll try to get into the engineering workstation. We have found a way with management. Our budget request was approved. We only had 1 budget request, I think, that wasn't approved in this whole game. It was a really good game. As far as good management behind the scenes here, we got really lucky.
I'm surprised that that milestone just now popped up because you've had your budget has been approved more than once, way earlier. So I think it might actually be that you're supposed to have it approved twice in a row or something like that. I don't know why that milestone just now popped up.
Yeah, it might have been twice in a row because we got or 3 times in a row or something like that, because I know we got denied the 1 time, but the other 2 times we definitely got approved.
We actually have one of the developers in the chat, if he's still there, Matt, who also he goes by Archon on one of the chats, and he's going by his real name in the other chat. So Matt, if you're still on, you wrote that milestone, so maybe you could tell us later on in the chat why it just now showed up. I think it is. I think it's more than once back to back or something like that, or maybe without getting denied. I don't know. We'll see.
Huh. I don't know why it's not letting me click on attack remote user now.
Oh, go, son. Go. What am I seeing? Go ahead and click a little wider in the circle there.
Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. All right. And we're trying to get in. Did we lose our covert attack? Yes, we did.
Yeah, that was a little overlay bug where the collider from one of the icons gets in the way. That'll be fixed.
All right. So we got our 1 person, and we're going to keep hardening everything. We're going to do everything a good cybersecurity professional will want to do. It might take us a while. It might be a little monotonous at times, but it's what we got to do. All right, and we are just not getting into that remote server. And it looks like, yeah, some of that stuff was patched. So and I know because I remember patching it a couple minutes ago. So we're going to have to let's do some reverse engineering. Yeah, we're going to need to do something to find some vulnerabilities. So we'll do reverse engineering. As you said, it's shifting to the blue team quite a bit. Now, if I remember correctly, isn't it for the blue team to win, do they have to get rid of patch everything for a certain specified period of time before the game?
Yeah, I don't know how I forget what you had set in your win conditions, but the win conditions are configurable in the settings. But I think by default, The way that the blue team wins is either A, you root out all the vulnerabilities, because you can, in this game, I know it's hard to do in real life, but in this game, you can root out and fix all the vulnerabilities. That's one way to win. And number two, you have to keep the red team from destroying your process control system for, I believe it's 75 turns. I don't know I forgot what the default is. I believe it's 65 or 75 turns. So there's two ways for the blue team to win.
Now, a good thing to remember for anyone that might just be tuning in. So we're playing ThreatGen Red Vs Blue, and we're playing as both the red team and the blue team right now. When you're playing single player or multiplayer, you actually are playing against someone else or a computer. So you won't be able to see both screens at the same time like we're doing right now. All right, and we're back, and we're still researching. And we got people again, so we're going to just continue our onslaught of patches. Let's see, is there anything else I want to do that I haven't done? I might want to do the security. Oh, I don't got enough people for that. There's never enough people. All right, so I got 2 people. So yeah, I'm gonna keep going with, keep doing patching. And we are back. All right, so we got some additional. Were we successful? It was successful. So we found some new 0 days. I don't know if we found 0 days specifically on the computers we want to attack, though. We do have a format string error on this gateway, so we can go and attack this gateway and try and get in that way. So outdated, which one was the 0 day?
I would say, yeah, again, there's a little bit of an overlay modal type of.
It was a format string error was the 0 day. So let's try getting in that way, get some movement, get in some way. We were in for a while as the attacker, and we just have continually been kicked out, which good going on the blue team, because it was looking pretty rough for the blue guys for a while. All right, we got 3 people now. We're gonna do security skills training. We're gonna bite the bullet. We're gonna do it. We know we need to do it. All right, we got our 5 people back. That attack was unsuccessful. So this is where things start to get more difficult for the red team, because now there's a lot more defenses in place, and it's actually pretty difficult for us to get in at this point. So we're going to start let's do some fuzzing. We'll find some public vulnerabilities, and we'll do some more research on some different kinds of attacks while we're doing that. So let's research. We'll do access control. There's always bound to be some bad access control somewhere.
I just verified. Yeah, the maximum turn by default is 75 turns. Okay. So by turn 75, if the red team hasn't won, blue team wins.
Well, and we're getting there, so we'll get there very soon. We're flying through these turns quite a bit now, or pretty fast. So we're almost there. It is getting a little later. We'll probably wrap up the stream in another 10 or 15 minutes. Thank you everyone for visiting the stream tonight. If you're watching the recording, thanks for watching the recording. Let us know how you like this stream. We'll look at doing more like this in Let's Play. And thank you so much, Clint, for your time tonight and walking us through this awesome game you guys have made.
Oh, thanks for having me, and thanks for the compliments. I'm glad you like it. And, like I said, I can't wait till 1.4 drops, and then, maybe we can go head to head, you and I together on a stream.
I think that would be fantastic. I'd love that. Although I'm not sure if I want to be the blue team or the red team. It's tough. It's tough. The longer the game goes, like you said, the blue team has an advantage, but it can be kind of overwhelming if I've played a couple of games where I did social engineering, got the engineering workstation immediately. There's been a couple times that's happened. And
well, in 1.4, the dynamics change because in 1.4, social engineering is highly expanded. You can develop malware in different ways, and there's a physical security element. You can actually go and do physical security break-ins, do USB drops. So the whole dynamic may still shift towards the blue team advantage, but there are a lot more ways for the red team to still get in late game.
that sounds like that's going to make it even more intricate. I like how, again, it's keeping with the realism. When can we expect that update to drop? And for those listening in on the live stream, where can they go to get access to this, to the game right now?
So to get access, it's pretty easy. Just go to Steam and search ThreatGen, and you'll find the game. And so that's the easiest way to get access to the game right now. Professionally, we have multi-seat licenses you can do if you want. But as far as when 1.4 drops, 1.4 was supposed to have dropped already. The problem is, just the kind of pandemic issue and stuff we have has slowed things down. But I'm literally supposed to have a development meeting with the development team tomorrow, and we're hoping to get this done and out before the end of April. And so we're really excited about it. But like I said, just a few hiccups in the things going on right now, but we should be getting it out by the end of the month.
All right, excellent. So if you have some time at home or you're looking for a great way to learn about cybersecurity, maybe you're a student and you want to learn more about the cybersecurity process, or maybe you're a professional and this just looks like a great way to practice strategy and maybe learn a couple of things on the red side or the blue team side, or you just want to have some fun, definitely encourage everyone to check out this game. I think at this point, we are just going to wrap it up for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for attending this live stream. And please let me know what kind of future live streams you'd like to see. On the banner right now, we have the link for where you can find this game on Steam. And again, if there are future streams you'd like to see, if you'd like to see more Red vs. Blue streams with different playthroughs, or you'd like to see other cybersecurity streams, please let me know in the comments or send me a message. Thank you, everyone. And thank you again to our guest, Clint. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your team. And I know this was a bit ad hoc for you, so thanks for spending 2 hours with us and walking through the game.
Hey, thank you. It was fun.
All right, everyone, have a good night. Stay home. Stay safe.